Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. As always, on a Thursday, joined a little earlier today by Supermac and Gibbo. How are you, lads?
All right, Steve, thanks. Yeah.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you. And lots of comments coming in already. I've had a few tweets as well. Morning, boys, says Rob. Steve, please try to do your best to console Malcolm on ASM leaving. I know it's not everyone's view, but I think we're getting a better and more consistent player in Harvey Barnes. Geordie Life says Maxi's so talented, but if only he had the attitude of I'll show them how good I can be on a regular basis. He's so laid back even in training. He doesn't look like he's interested in working hard. So many messages coming in about it. And Ian was first in with his question for Gibbo. Are you secretly gutted that Maxi is going as you love a good Supermac end product rant? And Supermac, are you glad that Maxi's going? Well, we don't want to jump the gun on this because he may well not be going. I mean, he the one thing seems to be certain is that Barnes, is on his way for £38 million. Fee agreed, personal terms agreed, medical to be passed. Some saying that he's had his medical already, but we'll wait for confirmation on that. But yeah, Malcolm, I mean, Newcastle, as we've said before, need to upgrade. Business needs to be done. One would imagine ASM has probably played his last game in a black and white shirt. He hasn't travelled to America. I guess rather than going on an ASM rant, we know your opinions on ASM. We know what you've felt about him for many seasons now. Is Barnes an upgrade to you? He's 25. He's got Champions League experience. His stats in a relegated team were far better than Maxi's in the same position last year. Okay, we can give ASM the benefit of the doubt. He played less games due to injury, but statistically in the last 4 years, his stats are far better than ASM.
Yes, they are.
Is it an upgrade?
Yes, it is, and I think it's a very positive upgrade. With Saint-Maximin, it looks like he'll be going. I think that he'll get a massive rise in wages by going over to the Middle East. And the football over there probably will suit him far better than the Premiership. So good luck to him over there. And I think that he'll be thoroughly entertaining for everybody over there, and he'll probably enjoy it an awful lot more than he has done here. Harvey Barnes, he knows what the Premier League is about and what's required, and it's quite simply how many goals have you scored, how many goals are you making, and Harvey Barnes knows those two are the priorities, not disappearing up your own backside.
It's been a situation which has split the fans, John. There's been many players who've split the fans. We actually did a chat on Geordie's here. Geordie's there last night and said, just amongst the panel, who is the greatest French winger in your time? I did give the lads a choice. Robert, Ginola, Obertan wasn't in there. ASM and Ben Arthur. And it's no surprise to hear that the lads resoundingly voted for Ginola at number one, and fourth came ASM, John. So I think an older demographic of fans probably don't appreciate ASM as well as maybe the youngsters do. The youngsters, it's probably their first cult hero in a 14-year period where the club were completely underperforming because Ashley was milking the club dry. And ASM was somebody to hang on to. He was a hero, wasn't he, John? So that's probably why, to the younger generation, he's well respected.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I'll remember, when you got Saint-Maximin against Manchester City, he was sensational. He toasted Kyle Walker. Having said that, how many times did it happen? That's the trouble. Yeah. We easily pick that game out because there wasn't a lot of games like that. So it sticks out in the memory. There was a lot of frustrating games. He's one of those players, Max. I'll remember him with great fondness because I'll remember Man City, I'll remember his goal at Wolves, etc. But for me, Harvey Barnes is unquestionably a extra level above the Saint. And, doesn't it show how far we have come in such a short space of time where the actual backbone of the Steve Bruce, Mike Ashley team is no longer starters at Newcastle. Off the top of your head, you think Maxi, the number one man at Newcastle, isn't the starter at the end of last season. Lascelles, club skipper, isn't a starter. Dummett, Ritchie, all these people, Isaac Hayden and Jeff Hendrick, who are still technically here, were very much part of the Steve Bruce side. No longer so. And Maxi's the one that really stands out because he was the star of that side. I think that Harvey Barnes is gone under the radar a little bit because in a very good Leicester side, not last season, I'm talking about originally, Madison took the eye, but you had Tielemans, you had Barnes, you had Vardy, a bit younger than he is now, so he was more explosive. You had Schmeichel in goal. They had a good side, a couple of years. They had a good side. It's disintegrated completely, but Barnes was a good part of that side. I think he's much more consistent than Maxi, who isn't, bless him. But I think he's a much more consistent player than Maxi. He scores a lot more goals. He works backwards as well as forwards, which is the Howe type of winger. Maxi didn't like going backwards. He liked going forwards or sideways, but he didn't like going backwards. This fella will go backwards. And he's rarely injured. Maxi could have a few injuries. Barnes is rarely injured. He plays a lot of games. So I think he is an upgrade. I think that'll only become apparent as this season gets underway with his performances. And if you remember, Dan Ashworth, who we blew big fanfare of trumpets when he arrived because of his terrific record, and one of the first things he said is that because of financial fair play, we have got to trade. We must trade to be successful. In other words, we must sell a player at a decent price to be able to upgrade and get a better player in. Now, we were warned right from the start. Well, if you look at the current Newcastle situation, guys, you can get up to £30 million for Maxi. But who else can you get good money for? Not the ones we want to stay, like Isaac and Bruno and Botman, but that would be prepared to go. Darlow is going to get you about 5 million. Fraser's not going to get you any more. Hayden, Hendrick, they're peanuts. Manquillo, peanuts. There's nobody that we would be willing to let go that will produce any sort of money bar Maxi. So Maxi had to go, and it's got Barnes in, and I think that's a step forward. Sometimes you've got to bite the bullet, and popular guys have got to go. But let us remember, we aren't offloading a first team regular. All this year, Maxi's been an impact sub, not a regular starter. So, you can. And let's put it another way. If Maxi stayed, he's got even less chance of getting in the team, isn't he? With Barnes brought in, because Barnes will get that role.
Yeah, I mean Anthony Gordon, Isaac can also play that position. Joe Linton can play that position. We are spoilt for choice down that left-hand side.
And even if you talk about switching the wingers round, you've also got Almiron and Murphy. We're knee deep in wingers. We're not necessarily in other positions, but we're knee deep in wingers. It's going to be interesting when Barnes comes, and you think Barnes nails down the left wing position. That leaves one wing position available with Almiron and Gordon. I mean, who's going to get the other wing position? Where's Anthony Gordon going to figure in this? Or is he going to be switched about a little bit? It's going to be fascinating. But this double transfer is going to happen. Barnes is already here in Newcastle. He's here at the moment in Newcastle, which shows, and he wouldn't be in Newcastle if they didn't think the other guy was going, because they need that to balance the books. And Maxi has said his goodbye to the players and everything when they left for America. So it's, bar somebody's leg falling off, both those deals will go through. by the weekend, and Barnes will be flying out to America to join the Newcastle contingent out there.
Yeah, my understanding was that Barnes was here yesterday, had his medical yesterday,
Yep.
and we're moving very quickly on that, and he will be in the USA probably along with Joe Linton, who's had a few issues with his visa, of course, due to his recent appearance in court. He had to sort that out, but those two guys will be travelling out there, and
I think Joe Linton's more of a doubt than Barnes to be travelling out there. Because, of course, we've had trouble with visas in the past, haven't we, guys, for America?
America's a nightmare, mate.
Joey Barton, etc., etc. It's a weird old situation. So I think there's more discussion about whether Joe Linton will get his visa than Barnes will be flying out there.
Yeah, Paul Patterson says, whisper it carefully, but unfashionable Jacob Murphy was a better player for us last season than ASM. He played more games and scored more goals, which is the Howe effect. If you stick in and dig in, you will be rewarded. And there is no room for sentiment, Malcolm, as well. I've got to question people's sanity when they call ASM a legend. I've got to be honest. He's not a legend, Malcolm. You're a legend. Legend
he is in his own mind.
Yeah, legend should be handed out to people.
Yeah, you're right.
Him. Remember, he talked about, bless him, and I'm not trying to nail him because he's gone, because there was so much to like about him. Handing out watches to punters and food banks and the fun stuff he put online. But he talked about winning the Ballon d'Or, and he talked about being this, that, and the other. Bless him. I mean, he hasn't got a French cap, and he's not going to get a French cap in Saudi, is he? So this is taking the money because it's a super deal, and they're all going there. I mean, it was only a few years ago everybody went to China, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not confirmed, of course. I mean, there is still the off chance that he could end up somewhere like Napoli, who's certainly shown a lot of interest in this window. Saudi seems to be the big talking point, but I guess it's where Maxi wants to go. You would imagine he wants to follow the money like so many others are doing.
He'll not get the money from Napoli that he'll get from Saudi, and of course Mahrez is going there to play with him for money from. Liverpool is there. Henderson's about to go into that league.
Mitrovic is going on strike.
Sorry?
Mitrovic has gone on strike.
Because he's not being allowed to go there.
Oh, yeah. Right. That's the second time he was on strike, when he was at Newcastle.
Craig Foggins says, morning lads, watching live from Lanzarote. He says, what do you think of Mitro saying he won't play for Fulham since they blocked his move away? I mean, Malcolm, that's a great response from you, as always. But yeah, I mean, Fulham, of course, one of your former clubs. That's a disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, this is news to me, to be honest. Why will he not play for Fulham? I saw that
he's got a chance of moving to Saudi Arabia. He's got a chance of moving to Saudi Arabia. Fulham have forced him to go on their tour away from the UK this week. And he has told family and friends that he will go on the tour, but he will never play for Fulham again.
Well, he has a contract. He is registered to play for Fulham, and I know that he's got a very, very awkward personality, and I think that he can sort of set himself in a rut. But if he doesn't play for Fulham, then he's in breach. Fulham will have nothing else to do other than suspend him. If you refuse to play, for heaven's sake, you must. Fulham have got to suspend him, and they'll do it a fortnight at a time. And any other clubs, would you really want to take a player who has gone on strike at his previous club, refusing to play? And it's not as if he's not in the Premiership, in a lower division or anything like that.
If you remember, the most famous, this is just off the top of my head, guys, without looking at the record books, But for me, the most famous player going on strike and refusing to play was a Newcastle United player, George Eastham, who went on strike to go to Arsenal, and Ernie Clay, Malcolm's old mate, employed him down in London. Remember Ernie Clay, Malcolm doing that?
Very much so, yes.
Until he got the go-ahead and he went to Arsenal.
Yeah, Jimmy Hill was the chairman of the Footballers Union, and I'm trying to think of the secretary's name at the time.
Was it Cliff Lloyd?
It was, yes, Cliff Lloyd. Thanks, John. Yeah, lovely guy. He was. This was a real matter of principle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This wasn't just trying to get something
it was
for yourself.
It was a very different scenario to Midweek. And
absolutely, yes, it was.
He was trying to smash the slaves, wasn't it? The slaves.
Yes. Yes. It was to get rid of the maximum wage. Mm-hmm. That's what that was what it was all about. Interestingly, because I got the judge's summing up, which was about 35 pages long. I got that some years ago, just out of interest, and thoroughly read it through. And on page 17, the judge made a really, really interesting point. He said he talked of freedom of contract for players. He said, but I'm not being asked to do that. I'm being asked to, and went on to talk about what George Eastham was and his lawyers were actually suing for, and of course granted it, and the maximum wage was abolished. Johnny Haynes, the captain of Fulham and England, he was made the first £100 a week footballer, and he went from an old Ford Prefect to a brand new Jag. I just remember seeing him go down Finlay Street to the ground in his Jag. So George Eastham, if memory serves, he didn't actually go on strike. Was he not suspended by Newcastle United?
I think they suspended him because he went on strike. Because he went on strike, right. I see. One followed the other. Yeah. But it was just off the top of my head, the only time I've ever known a top-class footballer sort of make a stand. But that was quite a moral stand where...
Sure, but the court proved George Eastham right, and Newcastle United and every other club in the country and the football, all the football authorities proved them totally wrong.
And he got Eastham got his move to Arsenal, etc.
Yes,
et
and I always remember that because it was only just a few years later. It was 8 years later that I joined Newcastle United, and I always got the impression from the chairman of Newcastle United, Lord Westwood, that he truly believed that it was a complete backward step for football. The loss of the maximum wage, which was, I think, 20 quid, John?
It was 20 quid when it was broken by Jimmy Hill. It was 20 quid.
Yes. Yeah. And
slightly different days, 20 quid.
Sure. And I think it left Lord Westwood seething for years afterwards.
I mean, Maxie's giving away Rolex watches to Newcastle fans now. And they used to get 20 quid.
When Malcolm said maximum wage, that wasn't Maximin's wage.
That wasn't Max's wage, no.
There's a breaking photo actually on social media. Thanks to John for pointing this out, and thanks to one of the lads for sending this. I'm not sure where they've took that from. Like, it looks like a game of Celebrity Squares or something. But that guy in the white jacket, they're alluding that is Harvey Barnes pitch side at Newcastle United, which is great. It's great to see him. It's great to see him there. And the club have also announced a rather uncryptic message. There will be the new shirt release, 21st of this month, which of course is tomorrow, 9:00. We will see the new design of the. I'm pleased to say the dark blue number, which I think a lot of people loved last year. Great to see that the Castore brand is going to go down the same kind of route. And as we can see, Newcastle United is spelled correctly, so we won't have any of the bedwetters going mental on social media about the badge and this, that, and the other. They'll find something else to complain about, I'm sure.
Of course they will.
Lots to talk about, obviously, with regards to transfers, I think, and financial fair play is something that people keep asking me about. We are going to do something on Sunday. I'll do it with the professionals. People sometimes just want to be led through social media carnage that develops. People just want to understand it. So I'll leave it to Mitch and to Stu on Sunday to go through that and discuss it. We're going to talk about the first two friendlies now, and Malcolm, we've played Gateshead, which is always great because it's financially a great opportunity for Newcastle to help their neighbours out. You know, a 7,000 crowd got thoroughly soaked wet before they went home, but they saw 5 goals. They saw Newcastle United's star players turned up to support the lads on the pitch. We saw some rather decent performances, it has to be said, from the likes of Elliot Anderson and Lewis Miley in particular. And then Newcastle, of course, travelled to Rangers on Tuesday night for Alan McGregor's testimonial. And we all got a chance to see Tonali for the first time, which I think was probably the highlight of the game. I mean, we win 2-1 in a testimonial. It's hard to judge. It's not really as competitive. But I think we saw some good performances. Dan Ashby, of course, getting the winner. Isaac, having a cameo role in the second half. Miggy doing what he seems to do best these days, which is put the ball in the back of the net. So, despite the lack of competitive nature in those two games, Malcolm, we saw some nice flashes. We saw some interesting things, shall we say?
Yeah, I think that the way that football is structured these days is that they set up a couple of early friendlies, and it's literally just to give everybody a bit of a run out, and then the serious fitness stuff. That will all come in America because I think they've already flown out, haven't they?
Yeah, they've arrived.
They have, yes, and that's where the real hard work will begin. If you notice that everybody, to get seriously fit, match fit, you need to be playing 90 minutes of football over and over and over again prior to the season starting. And if you notice that against Rangers, everybody was substituted halfway through pretty much. And so it gave 20 odd footballers a run out for 40 minutes sort of thing. And it was, and it's just to sort of get the body stretched out, ready for the hard stuff, and that will all come in America. Of that I'm pretty sure. For me, it's I can't take the games seriously because they're not there for the football as such. They're there for players to get fit. Use those games to get absolutely fit, and in the last couple of games to just increase the effort to increase the fitness, to attain match fitness, ready for the first game of the season.
John, always great to see your ex-club, getting an earner from Newcastle United turning up. It was a great crowd. Just a pity the
Yeah.
weather didn't didn't last. Downpours of people soaked. Some people had to leave before the end of the game because they were just so wet. But yeah, it was a great day, that, and Alan McGregor's testimonial, to play Rangers is great, and of course we could face them in the Champions League. But I think the highlight for me was definitely just how Elliot Anderson seems to have grown. First of all, he's grown into some player, but how Lewis Miley, who was on the fringes last year, and of course had an appearance, who now Eddie Howe is talking about him being involved this year and not going out on loan, being part of the team. But I just thought there was so many positives about those two in particular.
Yeah, they were the positives, with the confirmation from Tonali about how classy he is.
Oh.
I mean, he looks a proper player when he played at Rangers. I know I'm like Malcolm, I can't get too carried away by pre-season. As long as Newcastle aren't humiliated, the score almost doesn't matter, because it's not the real thing. The real thing, for example, our next game's Aston Villa in the States. That's going to be nothing like Aston Villa on the opening day of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, totally different game. I mean, we're not going to get any pointers from Aston Villa on Sunday night in America, when we won't have Joe Linton, we won't have Harvey Barnes, we won't have a couple of others, they won't have somebody. It's a kickabout. We don't want to lose 6-1, but if we won 6-1, so what? It all matters on the opening day, when it will be a proper match, bearing in mind how Aston Villa have improved in the same way as Newcastle United have, and how the extra spice of having done it under Dick Emery, who said no to us. So Unai Emery. So, that's going to be when it matters. But the lovely thing was to see Elliot Anderson, because I am biased because of his granddad, but I think he's going to be a super player. And you see, the difference is he's going to have the bit between his teeth when he plays against Gateshead and when he plays against Rangers, because he wants to show the manager what he's all about. If you're a senior player, you just treat those two matches as a way of getting fit. I mean, Glasgow Rangers up there was nothing like Glasgow Rangers in 1969 in the semi-final of the European Fairs Cup up there. It's different. And by the way, I hope we do get Glasgow Rangers now a group in the Champions League, because we will take their trousers down and give them a right old smacking. So I'd be very happy for them to be in our group. But there we go. I mean, we are a better team than them. There's absolutely no question about that. But it's a nice start. It's going to be interesting to see where Anderson gets this season. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Miley. And it's going to be even more interesting to see who else comes into this club between now and the shutting of the transfer window, because we still need, or haven't got, a right-sided centre-half, a left-back and another midfielder.
Yep. Great news in the cricket for those of you who have the same passion for me as the Ashes. Anderson strikes with the first ball, and England.
First ball, was it?
Yeah, oh, really? England going into bat, so that's great news. And
they're all out, are they?
Yes,
that's a great way to reply, because there was the report on yesterday. It was almost writing him off.
Yeah,
Anderson, yes, of course.
I hadn't finished singing Jerusalem when the wicket was taken, so that's fantastic. Great stuff. As always, we're halfway through the show. It is time for the ads. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you want to order some, then you can go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks also to New Workwear. They were set up in 2018, and they are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. You can find them at their website, newworkwear.com. Thanks to Media Arts as well for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under this video. Hit the thumb up to like the video, and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. If you'd like to take out a cult membership, which means you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw, then put your smartphone over this QR code now. It'll take you straight to the site. You can set up and pay a one-off fee of £25. Alternatively, go to nufcmatters.com and check for membership. If you're a subscriber, you can apply for a free car sticker. Just email john@nufcmatters.com to claim yours today. The new Shearer raffle is up and running. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket to win a limited edition Alan Shearer signed ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a couple of events coming up. Newcastle United question and answer live with Liam Kennedy, Jordan Cronin and Dominic Skerr from Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette in association with NUFC Matters takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre 11th of August at 7 p.m. and tickets are a fiver. The Christmas event will be with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday, December the 7th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 from nufcmatters.com. And Waddle, Keegan and Beardsley, the class of 84, with special guests, takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westcott Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 25th. Tickets are available direct from the theatre, 0844 24 91 000, or go to the website for further details. And don't forget, starting on the 7th of August, you will be able to hear myself, Steve Wraith, on the North East Footy Breakfast. This comes to you in association with the Toon Radio, 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 5 days a week. Check out the Facebook for more details. Okay, every now and then we get a question which is not Newcastle United related. And Andrew Malloy tweeted me this morning and said, Haaland, 52 goals for City. Kane, 31 goals for Spurs. If the players switch clubs, would they score more or less goals, Malcolm?
Yes, I think that whoever plays for Manchester City is going to get more chances. Although Kane has got a terrific finishing record, and so's the other fella, Haaland. That they don't miss that many, and everybody's got to miss, but they miss fewer, but they have more chances being made for them, and the higher up the table you are, the more chances that are going to be made for you by your teammates. And Man City, they were top all through last season, and their football was absolutely scintillating, and so Haaland, his goal scoring wasn't just down to him. It was something to be shared with all of the Manchester City players, because some of their football was absolutely superb to create these chances constantly, keep getting the ball in the box, and I know I've mentioned it before, but I will mention it again, that one of the highlights for me, just in terms of football, last season was that last 20 minutes when Newcastle were leading 3-1 against Manchester City. Manchester City for 20 minutes just turned it on, and their football was utterly scintillating. It was almost impossible to play against it, and of course they made so many chances as well, and they got back to 3 each, and Spurs are nowhere near that level, but they are a side that will make chances all the while.
If we remember, it was only a couple of seasons back when Kane was going to Manchester City and it was blocked by Levy. he would have been the Manchester City centre forward instead of Haaland.
Yes.
I mean, I agree. I think whoever plays centre forward for Manchester City gets the most goals in the season because
Yeah.
of what he's surrounded with. I
Sure.
think both of them are a class apart in this country, in English football, as goal scorers, as out and out goal scorers. I think Kane and Haaland are the two flag bearers without a shadow of doubt. Whoever plays for Manchester City gets the most goals. But they are both absolutely outstanding. In some ways, you've got to admire Kane because he's never won a single thing in his life. He still scores 30 goals a season regularly in a Spurs side, which at times last season was an absolute shambles, mind.
Yes.
We beat them 6-1 or something up here, didn't we? We
Yeah.
beat Spurs 6-1 up here. Kane got the goal, by the way,
Sure.
but
He
we
did.
beat them 6-1, and they were shambles.
Yes, they were.
You know what?
That first 20 minutes, oh my word.
You look at that Spurs side last season, and it won't be like that this season, believe you me. But last season, you look at that, and the two outstanding players, Kane and Song. Song really suffered last season playing in that shambles of a side, and at times didn't look anything like
Yeah.
the quality player he is. Yet somehow Kane kept going and kept scoring goals. And to get 30 goals in that side, which was a shambles, was absolutely terrific. Haaland with 52 blows you away. I mean, he just blows you away. But yeah, they're two of a class apart.
Yeah, and because he's only got a year on his contract, as Kane.
Yeah.
So do you think that Spurs will cash in this summer, John, and that we'll see him going to Bayern Munich?
Well, that's going to be that's the very, very interesting thing, because they risk losing the greatest asset they've got for nothing if they hang him in.
12 months time, yes.
I think what Levy is trying to do at the moment is suggest to Kane that under this Greek-Australian manager they've got down from Celtic, and with some super buying, the Spurs are going to be a genuine force and win things, and try to get Kane not just to stay, Malcolm, but to stay signing a new contract. So it's not up in a year. You know what I mean? They're trying to do that at the moment. Now, if it becomes apparent that he will not sign a new contract, then you should sell him, because he is going to go for nothing in a year's time. But you know, Kane is at the stage of his career where he can't wait another year to go. He'll be 30 or something. He's got to, to give him a real run at winning prizes, he's got to go now at 29. All of a sudden, he's going to be 30, and his best years are going to go behind him in the way they have with Vardy, who's much older, of course. But, it's going to be a crucial old time, because, and I know the ideal world with Spurs is that they're trying to sell him. This new manager's got a magic wand. You stay, you've got the Spurs goal scoring record, you'll get the Premier League goal scoring record, and you stay on a new 5-year contract with a huge rate. They're trying to sell him that. If he won't buy that, then they're going to have to seriously think about letting him go.
Sure, I'm not so sure, John, that he'll be convinced by this new manager that they bring in.
Well, it's funny, the words you get out of the clubs. It's funny. Bayern Munich's putting out on their grapevine that he's certain to sign for them as long as he doesn't change his mind, and that he desperately wants to go to them. And as long as he doesn't change his mind, they'll have to capitulate, because he's only got 1 year left, and he'll sign for them. Then Spurs put out on the grapevine that he loves the new manager and he's committed to the new manager. So, who do you listen to? Who do you believe? I mean, bless him, we all do it, don't we? Eddie Howe didn't want to get rid of Chris Wood, got rid of him. Didn't want to get rid of John Joe Shelby, got rid of him. Didn't want to get rid of Maxi, getting rid of him. And he doesn't want, bless him, he doesn't want to get rid of anybody. I'm certain that he doesn't want to get rid of Isaac Hayden, and Jeff Hendrick because he wants to build a side round him. But I don't think we'll see them again.
That's a great way of putting it, lads. It really is. But yeah,
But
I think.
do you think that Alan Shearer is having any input on this possible Kane move?
I don't think he's ever off the phone to Bayern Munich saying, if you want a couple of quid from me and I'll pay for the taxi and the flight to get him across there, because then his record's intact, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Who would you want to see break the record, says I Like Coffee? It's a good question. Anybody in a black and white shirt would be my answer, Malcolm.
Yes. I think that the record will stand because unless Kane has got a family just saying no, we're not going to leave this country. We're not going to leave this country. I think that he'll go this summer. It is the right and perfect time, age-wise and contractually, for him. And
it's almost the last chance saloon, Malcolm, age-wise.
Yes, it is.
29. You know.
Yeah, he's not had a move before, and this is going to be his only one.
Yeah.
You know, and what does he wants? What, 2 or 3 really top seasons at Bayern Munich, playing in Europe, wonderful, and he'll score a lot of goals over there.
Yeah.
Yes, he will. The centre forward in their side always scores.
But that won't make any difference to Alan Shearer and his record.
Yes.
And I always point out that Shearer doesn't hold the record. Yes, he holds it for the Premier League, but it's Jimmy Greaves who holds the all-time goal-scoring record.
Oh, yeah.
Life didn't start with the Premier League. Just ask Malcolm and ask Gibbo. For me, I think it's always very disrespectful. I really do. But never mind. That was my opinion, and I will stick to it. John, a quick one for you. Any truth, do you think, in the Anderson from Crystal Palace story? A lot of rumours flying around that he potentially wants to move to Newcastle. I guess the other name I'm going to ask you about is Livramento, John, who has been heavily linked with a move to Newcastle. Of course, a Southampton player at this moment in time. Anything in those two, John, that you've heard?
Yeah, Newcastle are very consistent and persistent in their tracking of people, aren't they? They've been after Barnes for a while, they were after Botman for ages, after Isaac for ages. They're very persistent. They're like a dog with a bone. Once they get hold of the bone, they won't let go. And certainly Anderson is, for the right side of centre half, is the guy that they really look to as possibly the answer, and possibly being within their price range. Because the wonderful thing, if there is, for getting Maxi out, is that Maxi almost pays for Barnes, doesn't he? It's if we get up to 30 million for Maxi and it's up to 40 million for Barnes, it's as near as damn it to swap, which means the extra money that they've got to be able to spend on somewhere else. Now, the Southampton kid, I think, who was brought up at Chelsea, I think is an absolute terrific player. But I'm a little bit flummoxed, because on priorities, he's a right back. And Trippier is our right back for the next 2 years. So you're buying him to replace Trippier in 2 years' time. But does that make him a killer signing for Newcastle right now? Because if we get him, we will miss out either on a centre half, a left back, or a midfielder. I think we need a left back more than we need a right back for this coming season.
John. Yes, we do.
For this coming
season. I noticed in one of the friendlies that Byrne played at the centre half.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I mean,
and the other lad played at left back. So,
he's a super player, this kid at Southampton. He's a super player. But surely one of the best players we've got at the moment is Trippier.
Yes.
And I know he's 32, but if we are so tight on money this season, as we say we are, and we trumpet financial fair play, as being a problem, then surely, if we've got one more big signing in our transfer pot, we're better getting a left back than we are getting a right back.
Here's a suggestion from C. Anderson. Might they switch Trippier to left back? because he's done that for England.
He can't play there, but he's. I mean, if he wants to stay in the England squad, he's a right back. He's a right back.
Yeah,
and of course,
you lose his supply, because it's very much a right-footed supply.
Yeah, and yes, and here's the other thought, guys, that we're looking at a right back from Southampton, albeit a very good one, but we signed Ashby, who scored the winning goal at Rangers. We signed him from West Ham with great persistence, like we have for everybody, and he's a right back.
Yes.
Yeah, so, interesting to see what happens with him. Because
I'm flummoxed about this right back because this kid's good, but give me a left back every day.
Absolutely, John. Yeah, a left-footed left back.
Exactly.
I think this covers Jerry's question. Looking at the two friendlies, do you think Eddie's going to experiment with some of our players playing in slightly different positions this season? He's got to. I mean, with the arrival of Barnes, he's got decisions to make. But we need, we need a big squad. We've got to have players who can be versatile as well. And I think I certainly think he will, move people around and change people around. I think that's the whole point of friendlies, Malcolm. I've often said, even at non-league level, I'd rather lose all my friendlies and then win the first game than because you need to find out who can play at what position, etc. That's what friendlies are about: getting your fitness levels up. And if you want to experiment, that's the time to do it, isn't it?
And seeing how players dovetail with each other. There was one that I noticed up at Rangers, and that was how Tonali and Anderson got together. They had some lovely interplay between them.
I mean, you were quite right. The pre-season, it's almost a false time for me, I mean, bless you. And by the way, I'm not having to go to Gateshead because that's my second love, as everybody knows, and that's a club I owned for a decade. But, Anderson has a good game against Gateshead, and we get 5 things we learned at Gateshead. Anderson's pressing for a first-team place. He was playing a non-league side, for goodness sake. If Ando doesn't look good against a non-league side, what the hell is he doing at Newcastle United? Of course he would look good. It's all so false. I mean, last season, this is off the top of my head, Steve, you would know from last season, pre-season, we lost to Maine and we lost to, I think it was Benfica. And then we go and have a season where we finish 4th top, we're in the Champions League and we're in a League Cup final at Wembley. But we lost to Maine and Benfica because it didn't mean anything. It was just getting fit, wasn't it? So you can't lose I'm certain somebody out of the 3 will probably beat us over in America, whether it's Aston Villa, Brighton or Chelsea. But I would say, so what? I'd rather lose to Aston Villa on Sunday night than lose to Aston Villa on the opening day of the Premier League season.
Interesting rumour flying around at the moment with a photograph of Jeff Hendrick in Liverpool today. That he could be.
He's not signed for Liverpool, is he?
He could be going to Everton, which would add up with Sean Dyche, of course, at Everton, former Burnley player.
Jeff Hendrick, we're talking about here.
Jeff Hendrick, possibility.
I don't care where he goes, to be truthful, but yes, I mean, have Everton got a death wish? Are they trying to do the same thing as Nottingham Forest did with Shelby and Wood? I mean, they've probably got a death wish.
Why can't we get rid of Fraser, says Paul? It's $1 million question. Look, I think we will get rid of these players. It'll take a while. It will take a while. Ian's suggestion is that Paul buys him. I don't think Paul would want Jeff Hendrick around his house. And, to be honest, but there we go. Jasmine says, did Supermac enjoy reminding Jeff Nolte about the 74 Cup semi as Jeff was in the Burnley team? Have you seen Jeff? Was this when he was at the club? No.
I mean, according to Malcolm, he didn't see Jeff on the field much either when he was playing.
You're absolutely right, John. Yeah, and Gordon Lee built him up to heroic status.
Yeah,
and I'd got my suspicions about him, and we played Liverpool at home, and we happened to beat them 4-1. and we absolutely murdered them on the day. But I was keeping a close watch on what Jeff Nolte was actually achieving, and he was motoring up and down, up and down, up and down. But he actually only had 4 touches in the whole game. A central midfielder, and he had 4 serious touches in the game, and the whole game, it just went around him. It was all around him, and we played absolutely terrifically, and he was like this character that just, for all his running, for all being in the right place at the right time and what have you, he just couldn't get involved in a game itself.
Gordon Lee, Malcolm, built up Graham Oates to be a world beater. And the highlight of Graham Oates' career at Newcastle United, bless him, was he scored the most sensational goal I've ever seen from 40 yards. The only trouble was it was into his own net.
John, it was his debut, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was some goal. He turned around to pass it back to the keeper, and he leathered it into the top of the net off the crossbar.
It came from the kickoff, if memory serves me. And I said to John Tudor, I said, John, just roll it. I'm going to knock it back to the new boy and give him a touch, give him a feel in loads of space. And so I pinged it back straight at his right foot, and he sort of miscontrolled it. It went up in the air, and it sort of went over his head, and he turned round and half volleyed it straight into the top corner.
In fairness,
was it Leeds or Man United that we were playing?
I can't remember. My mind went blank when he did
but
that.
Anyway, but they were actually 1-0 up, and they hadn't touched the ball. In fact, they hadn't got within 20 yards of it.
Yeah, but in all fairness to Graham Oates, it was nominated for goal of the season. So I mean, it was nominated for goal of the season. It was a belting finish, like What we said.
We finished up coming back from that, and we won the game.
Yeah,
we won it 2-1. But oh my word,
absolute classic.
There we go.
And your home debut is always so crucial for you, and
it was for you when you scored 3 against Liverpool.
Well, yeah, but it sort of establishes you as the kind of player that people either want you to be, or you establishes you as a player that people can't take seriously.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
what Graham Oates did in that game. Oh my word, I should never forget that. I think it's the most ridiculous thing that I have ever seen happen on a football pitch. And
if you remember, Gordon said, and I must end it here, but Gordon said when he signed, because we'd never really heard of him, because he played for Blackburn with Gordon, who were in the 3rd tier or some one promotion, so we didn't know this guy. And he actually said that he was better than eight Newcastle players, because I tried to spend my time working out which 8 they were. But he actually said that on him signing before the game.
Oh,
so
Gordon Lee, he said so many utterly ridiculous things, and
I know.
And I used to just hold my forehead and shake my head and think, what on earth is he going on about? That was not only in team meetings, but in press conferences.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tell you what, Steve, me and you have been very guilty today of winding Malcolm up, because you started asking him a question about Maxi and I've finished asking him a question about Gordon Lee. So we're both very guilty there of giving Malcolm full rein.
It was the whole Jeff Nolte situation. I knew it would cause problems. Paul said he's going to miss this, Malcolm. He says, I'm missing Malcolm's. How many chances does he make? How many goals does Maxi score? Do you want to say it, Malcolm?
Huh?
Well, I hope he's not saying that about anybody else that we've got in the side.
The same two questions apply to Harvey Barnes and what he does in this coming season, and how many goal chances do you make? You know, when you're in that crucial wide position, that's what you're there for. You are there to make goals for other people.
The good thing, Malcolm, with Harvey Barnes was in a Leicester side that was relegated last season, playing as a winger, he scored 13 goals.
Yes.
And that's a good return.
It's a hell of a return, John. Yes. And I think he made almost as many as well.
Yeah.
For others.
His record is good.
Yes, it is. Very good indeed.
Yeah, Barnes has got a similar stats to Rashford, says Ian. Ian Toon Trader says, don't know if I've ever told you this, Gibbo and Supermac, but my football coach at school was Richard Dennis, who you'll both remember well, I imagine.
So you would have learned nothing at all then.
He was a better coach at my school than at the Toon, he says. So there you go.
I thought we'd set Malcolm up again there with a punter asking about Richard Dennis. Good. We'll have to put an extra hour on this programme this week.
Brilliant stuff. John, was great to spend a day with John yesterday. Everybody who follows the channel, including the guys on screen, will know John. He's making his recovery from a pretty horrendous time, but we managed to get out yesterday. We went off to watch Indiana Jones, and then we went to watch The Who yesterday, and we had dinner in between, so it was great to catch up with John. He's making a great recovery, so good to see you yesterday, John. He does say, Malcolm, as a former pro, what was Darlow thinking with that misplaced pass to Bruno? Even if Bruno wins the pass, his only option would be to play it back. It was crazy. Yeah, I think we saw from Darlow, although he did pull off a great save later on in the game, he just hasn't quite made the grade, has he, at Newcastle, Darlow, and he will depart maybe to Bournemouth.
So many good things about him. But yeah, there's just something lacking there.
Yeah,
John? my worry when that happened was, bloody hell, I still hope we're going to get the 5 million off Hull or Leeds or whoever, and because it's best for him. We've got 5 goalkeepers at the moment. It's unbelievable. I thought at the end of last season we only were going to have one, and that was Pope, because you thought Dubrovka had been out on loan, so he might go. Darlow had been out on loan, so he might go. And Karius and Gillespie's contracts were both up. So it looked as if we had one keeper. As we speak now, we've got 5.
Yes, and Karius started at Rangers, didn't he?
Oh, yes, he's got a year's extension. I mean, the way the pecking order is going to be this season, it's going to be Pope 1, Dubrovka 2, Karius 3, and Gillespie 4, and Darlow transferred.
Yes.
Yeah, I never rated Darlow, says JB. John, I think it was more Bruno's fault than Darlow. Bruno was off during that game, which is understandable. Really, it was first game back, of course. The Darlow-Bruno pass reminds me of one of the goals Man United conceded against Brentford when DDG passed to Eriksson. And it was Frank Chipper who posted it about Hendricks, so that means it's absolute garbage. So there we go. I think one of the lads has been done like a kipper by Frank Chipper, which isn't the first time that's happened on Twitter. He's renowned. He's renowned. But we can all dream of that day when Jeff Hendrick does leave and never comes back. But I did see him score.
You definitely startled me there. I thought Everton must have a death wish, but he'll find a club somewhere, pray God. And
close house maybe.
Isaac Hayden needs to find a club as well, but we're not going to make 30 million a piece on them two to help us get a left back and a centre half.
No
30
doubt
pence
about that.
maybe, 30 pence in all fairness. We've got a chance there.
As always, an absolute pleasure to spend an hour with you guys. Don't forget, you can also listen to this on Toon Radio on a Friday. But for now, thanks to Malcolm, thanks to John. See you guys next week. Take care.
All right. Have a good week, everybody.
Take care. Enjoy.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.